Hello all, my name is Quinn. Forgive my voice and kind of my overactive throat. I'm currently still getting over COVID. So today I will be speaking on the restaurant / the club industry around the globe and about how a women-driven industry still doesn't mean that the employed women are respected or even given given opportunities that one would expect. I'll be focusing on strippers around the world, but also the emergence of bottle service in developed countries such as the UK and the United States and of America. And overall, my argument is that the women in this industry desperately need more labor laws and better safety precautions inside and outside the doors of the various establishments. And also they deserve 100% right to all of the money that they make in any given night. It's ironic, really, that women are the only eligible candidates for these positions in this industry. However, the industry is kept afloat by men. It is also ironic, in my opinion, that the strippers involved are suddenly publicly shunned and shamed by society for even inquiring about the position. However, without the men frequenting these businesses, the industry simply just would not exist. I also feel that, in a way, this almost encapsulates the superiority some men can crave by only accepting these positions by permitting them. Excuse me. And of course, only when the women are tending to the men's personal needs. This topic really interests me and suits me well because I am in the restaurant industry myself. I'm not in the club or the strip club industry, but I am in the restaurant industry. I'm involved in premium dining. So the place I work for is higher ended and very much women driven because our main goal is to create lasting relationships with the guests so that they return. A hidden rule in the restaurant that I work for is that the front of house crew, women especially, must be conventionally attractive. And I put that in quotes because I know attractiveness is, subjective but they must be conventionally attractive, which in turn rouses more interest from guests and specifically offers our male guests some free one-on-one time with an attractive woman. Men that don't tip aren't treated any differently, might I add. So the majority of the time, the women I work with are expected to respect and flirt with the men drooling over them and their food, then leave with only $4 representing the time they spent with that single table if they don't tip. They're only paid $2.13 an hour, so they are expected to build those relationships in order to make their own money, not before the restaurant takes a cut of the girl's work anyway. Their money is made strictly from tips and the relationships they create with their tables. But like I said, not before the restaurant takes a percentage of the server's wages. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. And the work we do as women at our restaurant in no way represents the stress and fear that working as a stripper can present. I do have multiple sources from this project, a lot coming from the New York Times, firsthand experiences from strippers, National Public Radio podcasts, and even some articles from Voxbase and the Japan Times, which I was really excited about. I look forward into diving into some of these resources and topics, and let's get started. So some facts that I have gathered, starting with Japan, from the New York Times. The bottle service is simply still called hostessing. So hostessing in Japan does not involve prostitution, though religious and women's groups point out that hostesses can be pressured into having sex with clients, and that hostessing can be an entry point into Japan's sprawling underground sex industry. So second one, back in the United States, a group of strippers at a California club called Star Garden raised concerns about safety issues like handsy customers and poorly maintained stages, as well as retaliation from management whenever they spoke up. These complaints led to the dancers to picket the club and seek a union vote. So back in Japan, bottle service bottle service, still called hostesses, is actually a very coveted and glamorous job to have as a woman in Japan. But this is due to the dismal Japanese economy offering few opportunities to the young women. So that raises a question for me. What besides the economy is fueling hostessing's popularity? So financially, some financial, facts. Strippers have a much harder time with banks and trying to get loans taken out due to corporate slut shaming. I put that in quotes because I don't want to accuse, any big corporations or big banks for doing anything like that. This is just research. So strippers have little recourse in being able to supply financial institutions with the required paperwork to have loans granted under an employment classification. And instead, the banks will force these vulnerable workers to apply for loans as contractors, which have much stricter loan provisions. Also, financially, a lot of clubs take a percentage of the girls' earnings from tips. Meanwhile, they're being paid minimum wage. On any given night, a girl can earn $1,000 from the guests, but can be required to hand up to $650 of it to even just retain their position. So back in Japan, even before the economic downturn, almost 70% of women ages 20 to 24 work jobs with few benefits and little job security, according to a government labor survey. And this in hand motivated a lot of Japanese women to begin hostessing. So around the world, basically, zoning regulations focus on keeping strip clubs away from schools and away from churches in order to maintain property values and ensure community safety, which strip clubs are perceived to threaten. In places like California, Washington State, and a pending ordinance in Minneapolis, the stripping industry has been at the forefront of the move to reclassify employees as independent contractors. Like I said earlier, financially, they are required to apply for loans as contractors. So independent contractor status reframes workers as entrepreneurs. So these dancers and strippers, they are suddenly entrepreneurs, shifting the risks and expenses of employment from the business straight to the workers. So in the 1990s, clubs began classifying dancers as independent contractors, which allowed them to sidestep employer obligations, charge dancers fees to work, and prevent dancers from forming labor unions. So in the UK, lap dancers don't actually make the massive money that people think. Instead, they have to pay a significant house fee, sometimes up to £200, just to be allowed into the club, as well as around 25% commission on every private dance. If dancers don't get enough customers, they can go home out of pocket. They are also considered self-employed and are not eligible for paid holiday insurance or even long-term employability. Also in the UK, dancers are supposedly protected by the club bouncers, but when making a profit is so important, it's hard for dancers to protect their rights. It's common for strippers to experience verbal abuse and unwanted touching by customers, which is also a big problem in the United States and around the world whenever it comes to women working with public morals. So yeah, these are my facts. And okay. So, as my proposal, similar to the protest in California at Star Garden, I would like to pitch a new protest. Instead of women dancing inside of these clubs as independent contractors, I believe these women should take their independence to a new level. I believe they should be dancing outside of their clubs, chanting to the men, "Your money, your choice." Sure, go inside the club, or you could stay out here and save a few bucks from an entry fee and ensure your money is going entirely to the dancers. I wholeheartedly believe if the labor laws for strippers were more well known, the men frequenting these establishments would like to support the women they've built relationships with, and the women only, not the men in management who take percentages of the women's proceedings. The clientele comes for the women alone. I'd imagine they'd wish their money to the women they gave it to, not to the man pulling the strings. Although the slogan is very similar to "My body, my choice," this is kind of one of my angles, People tend to understand and are attracted to things that they recognize more, and anyone who disagrees with my body, my choice may even be more intrigued to learn about your money, your choice. I feel that this slogan puts men in a very critical spot. This slogan challenges men just as much as it welcomes them, and especially it gives them a slight complex. There's no arguing with the average man who frequents strip and gentleman clubs. So I feel like this is a good angle for them to think to themselves, hey, it is my choice, which hopefully in hand convinces them to follow the girls they came for the first place. If this protest were to take place, there wouldn't be any women in the clubs anyway. So if the first decision the men make is wrong, at least they can come right back outside and pay the actual workers. It's a win-win. I feel that this protest is incredibly important because it can shift the powerful fists into the women's grasps. Although this protest is aimed directly towards benefiting the dancers and the strippers within the clubs, I feel as if this protest can help bring light into women's rights in general, even if they dance for money. Previously, like I said, the slogan is very similar to My Body, My Choice. It can help not only shed light directly on the strippers, but also just women in general. We've been fighting with this slogan for a long time. This is just another avenue that we're taking. Strippers, just like any women in the workforce, deserve the money that's promised to them. However, I imagine this can get confusing in the stripper industry, being that there are no men to compare the women's wages to. In all of the industries, we always have a man doing the same thing as a woman, and unfortunately the woman is getting paid slightly less to do the same job. However, in the stripper industry, given at these certain clubs, there are male strippers. However, chances are they don't work for the same club. And I feel that whenever men are involved, better labor laws are involved and better finance protection and things like that are involved, just because it's a man doing a woman's job. So obviously with any protest, there will be anti-protesters and police surrounding to ensure that it is peaceful. But a specific obstacle that continues to pop up into my mind is the law of public indecency. I obviously wouldn't want any women to get into any trouble. So some strategy may need to take place here to ensure a captivating show and respect to the bystanders nearby. We're not trying to throw anybody's morals into their face. We're just trying to throw money back into the stripper's face. Another possible risk could be possible fights and or alcoholic rages. The frequenters at strip clubs aren't the usual egg. So a way to move around this obviously would be no alcohol whatsoever. There are much stricter laws, surrounding who and what can provide alcohol to the public. And so just to ensure that we don't have any problems with law enforcement, there would be no alcohol offered by the dancers. So it is recommended that you, what's the word? You pre something. you pre-drink and you show up. And I feel like if this protest is successful, it would continue on for a while, and I believe that people would, get the memo. And besides, the girls are there to dance, which is their legal right inside and outside the club. Serving alcohol, however, is not. So to ensure this protest is successful, what I would mainly need is all the women's support and dedication to possibly not make any money, maybe the first, 2 days of it, until the wheels get moving. And I would need that belief from them that this is good that we're doing for their position. I would need complete belief and faith from the dancers that avoiding dancing in the club will eventually land more money in their pockets and better labor laws for their practice. The only people that this would make mad are the club owners. And at that point, maybe they would take a look at their own, representation of the women and realize that it is their body, their choice, while it's the customer's money and it's their choice. So like all protests, I would need the press to recognize this protest as a real movement, and I would need a lot of frequenters to remind the clubs who actually bring the money in. the girls. Even if the initial goal does not play out in the way that I hope, the clubs will also be reminded to take care of their girls as well as their clientele. The business cannot run without both groups present, even if one group gets better care than the other. I just believe that the industry has been caring for the wrong group. It's an injustice that deserves to be recognized and changed. That is, if men still want to use their money how they choose, without a middleman stealing profit. So that's all I got for my protest, but thank you so much. Goodbye.